Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today. You are listening to the podcast for career development and leadership. And today we are talking about the invisible. All the stuff that you don't see that causes people's success, or all of the stuff that has gone on in the background, and then suddenly when the show is in front of you, or whatever you're watching, you kind of go, man, I wonder how much prep was in that. Well, we're going to talk about prep, and we're going to talk about the invisible, because there's a lot of stuff that you don't see that happens to get people into successful places. And Sasha, one of the most successful people I know. How are you? I know you're not very well because you've got the COVID and you're dressed like Hugh Hefner.
Yeah. I am here in my dressing gown and I've got some voice back, which is amazing. Yes, I do have the Rona. Man, the Rona got me. But I'm kind of, look, I don't think we should mess with these diseases. Loads of people got long COVID. It's really problematic. But I'm quite pleased that I've got it before I go on my overseas trip, because I think it means I can't get it overseas now, maybe. I'm not sure. Hey, thanks for the description of calling me one of the most successful people you know. What's success, man? What is success? What's interesting about what we're going to talk about today is it really doesn't matter how you define success. It's really easy to look at people who look like they've got it all together and just feel like maybe it comes naturally to them. Maybe, if you're any good at something, you make it look effortless. And I think it's really useful to unpack how good you have to be and how much work you have to do, all those invisible things, in order to make it look as easy as it is. And that's across the board for parenting, for being in a successful relationship, for your job, for your career, for all of that stuff. Nothing is ever as straightforward as it looks. So I'm excited to talk about this. And I wish I was invisible today, but I'm not.
You are not invisible, but maybe we won't do the video this week.
Oh, come on.
You're looking good, Sasha.
I feel judged.
But when we talk about the invisible, I think the thing you need to realize is most people will never see you're invisible, right? So they will see the end result of the success, but they won't see all of the stuff you needed to go through in order to get that success.
I actually think that it's also okay to just go, no, I don't want that level of success because I'm not prepared to do that much work in whatever area that is, or I'm not prepared to make the compromises that would be necessary in order to be single-minded about that one thing. And I think lots of when we talk about this balanced life, it's a definition of success that says, I want to have a really good home life and I want to have a really good work life. And if that means I don't make it right to the top of my career, well, that's fine, because I'm defining success by being happy work life and happy home life. I'm not prepared to sacrifice one over the other, and that's okay. And we can take our hats off to the people who do commit to doing the incredible amount of effort. I mean, a really obvious example for that is fitness. Just about all of us could be a gazillion times fitter than we are. We're just not prepared to do the work. And so once you actually start a fitness journey, I often find you end up having more respect for people who are further ahead, because you have this real appreciation for how much invisible work goes in to be able to run that fast or run that far or jump that high. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I don't think people would actually put in the work as hard if they had the result already. If you just said, I tell you what, can you just give me the gold medal for marathon running at the Olympics, and then I will just train hard enough to the point where I think I earned it or can justify having that gold medal, you'd never put in the work, right? There's something about the fact that it's something you need to achieve and you need to work hard to get there, that a lot of the success comes from the struggle and the demands that happen within the struggle, rather than just being handed to you on a silver platter. I don't think people ever would step up in exactly the same way.
Nobody said it was easy. I mean, it sounds like you're saying we have to suffer, and I'm good. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, you are successful in the way that you have a business, you have a speaking career. I look at you and everywhere, Sash. You're on planes, you're heading overseas, you've got the Festival of 50, you're saying yes to everything that's going on, and you have got yourself into a position where you can do that. But along the way, I also know there's been some hard times and times where you might have actually gone, you know what? Should I quit? Do I really want to keep pushing through? But maybe we could talk about what some of those hard times were, maybe in starting Coffee Culture, that have ended up now being the end result that people see.
It's a great question because it causes you to reflect back and go, okay, so what were the hardships or what were the tough times along the way? So first up, I didn't start Coffee Culture. Chris, my husband, did with some others. And I met him when the business was about 4 years old. So they'd been going for 4 years and I rocked up in my little lawyer's suit and get a coffee on the way into town. And what he tells stories of from those days is when he first opened the coffee shop, he just worked in it all the time. And not all the time like 9 till 6 or 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. all the time. So opening at 6 and closing at 10:30 p.m. and then getting up and doing that every day. And occasionally having some time off to see his son and then just going back and doing that every day. So lots of hours and hours and hours of effort and work goes into getting something to a certain level. And if I think about some of the challenges that we faced once I came on board, is in those early days of a business, it's profitable, but you're not paying yourself much, and it's not profitable that you go, well, look at me living the life. It's profitable so that you have a job and there's a bit more money that you continually reinvest all the time. And I think the temptation in those times is to think, oh, what if I just quit, gave up all the stress and got a job? I mean, that was never going to be an option for Chris because he was right in there. But for me on the fringes, it was like, should I just get a job? Would that be better if I'm... And you see other people having a career that's advancing, and it's not until later, once the business gets to a certain size and scale, that you go, oh, look at those suckers now on their 8 to 5, because you get some of the flexibility. So many of the rewards come much later. And I think about some of the early work that I did with Les Mills International at the time when I was trying to build and be of value around the world in terms of some of the training and things that I was writing and providing. And I used to put Portia to bed at 11 p.m. And then I'd try and do a couple of hours of work until she woke up for her feed at 1 a.m. Then I'd feed her and she wouldn't go back to sleep. So she basically just slept on me while I was breastfeeding her on and off from about 1 a.m. till 5 a.m. And we had a separate room that we were in, aside from Chris, and I was writing body jam manuals and body pump manuals. And then people would say, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky that you've got that chance with Les Mills. And I just used to go, I'm lucky that I've got a particular set of skills to channel Liam Neeson. But I'm not lucky that I was willing to do that work. Yeah. I was willing to do that work. I chose to work through the night multiple times to meet project timelines. And I was still working through the day, and I was then working through the night. That doesn't make me like a hero. I'm not going like, oh, you're amazing. I'm just saying I think a whole lot of people don't appreciate how much work there is that goes on invisibly at night. In quiet times, in weekends.
Yeah, and you're often learning a craft as well, or learning a skill. So you're getting better at business. So technically, if Coffee Culture collapsed and blew up tomorrow and you were starting again, no worries. If you were starting again, well, you could probably start it relatively quickly and scale it quickly because you've got that experience and you know how the business works. But at the start, when you're, taking what Chris started and then you're starting to go, could this be a thing that's bigger and we franchise it out? You're learning that at the beginning. Like you're literally building the plane as you're flying it back then.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview. The 30-minute presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-minute presenter program.
Yeah. And I think the ability to always be learning as well. So all through those times, I was always doing some kind of other training. Like, I've always been someone that's like, I don't understand how that works, but this is knowable. So I'll go and perhaps do some university papers, or I'll go and do an online course. So that commitment to be learning all the time is also an example of that invisible work that's going on, behind the scenes. You think about the things that you've taught yourself to do in terms of coding and design and visuals and media and all of that stuff. That takes time. That all takes time, where you are not just pleasing yourself. That's so rude to say. Not just pleasing yourself on the couch. I hope you're not pleasing yourself on the couch. Not long. It's like, what are you prepared to sacrifice? What are you prepared to give up in pursuit? And so much of this invisible work is time that you spend picking yourself up off the floor when things don't go according to plan, going again, learning, reflecting.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we look at people and we see that end result, and it's really easy to your point before, to just kind of default to the natural talent. The fact they can just get up and speak like that, or that they can do that, that's amazing. I wish I could do that, or I wish they had the opportunity to do that. But you'll never see the invisible of how much prep was put in, practicing that intro, or overcoming the nerves to be able to do that through volumes of times that you've got up to present. And that invisible investment that you put in is your end result. You don't get a second chance to make a great first impression. So when you're hopping up for the very first time, as we teach you in our presenter program, you've got to nail that first 3 to 5 minutes. You need to get it done. You need to do your invisible and your prep, rather than, I think what some people do is they have a bit of natural talent. They get up and start talking and hope that their brain catches up with their mouth and it turns into something amazing. Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. And you're working so much harder than if you'd done the invisible, done the prep in the first place. Sometimes
people win money at the casino.
Yes.
Same kind of odds. Yeah. Same kind of odds.
There's an analogy that gets used often, which is the iceberg analogy, right? You only see really the top. Is it 20%? 10%?
The tip of the iceberg. The jelly tip of the iceberg, as we say in New Zealand.
Exactly. And then what's underneath is massive. But that kind of that top 10% of what you see is supported by a whole lot of stuff that's underneath. So it really goes back again to what's your hidden iceberg? What's the talents that you've got in place that you've crafted and honed over a huge amount of time to get to that point? What's the muscle memory that you can embed as a sports person, so that when you have to make that shot in the key clutch moment of the game and the camera is on you, it just looks effortless? But there was hours and hours and hours and hours of work, and probably mentors and coaches and pain and blisters and sweat and blood and tears to get to that perfect shot that ends up being the poster that, is on every kid's wall around the world.
There's two aspects to this that interest me. One is at our age. So Ish and I are you 50 yet?
I am turning 50 in December, Sash.
Oh, I'm older than you. I always forget that. So this is my month, June. I'm going to be 50 by the end of this month. And by the time we get to our age, there's something that we've done a lot of. So everybody who's our age has done a lot of something. So whether you've got mastery in it or not, you've done a lot of it. So I don't often realise how many 30 to 45 minute talks, keynotes, training sessions I've given now. I probably couldn't count them up. But I gave one last week, and two comments came to me that were both just hilarious to me, but I hadn't reflected on them until someone said it. The first thing was, it was a really big conference that I spoke at, did the keynote, got off the stage, thanks very much. It was great. As I was walking to my car, this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, I really enjoyed your talk. It was just great, just effortless. just, really, really compelling. Lots for me to think about. Thank you so much. Have you thought about doing this professionally? And I went, what a paradox. The paradox is if you do it in a way that is so relaxed and makes it look so easy, he thinks there's no professionalism in it because it just came so easy. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, at a different conference that same week, another person came up to me and said, look, thank you so much. I just want to say, just really, I know they said it's like one of the best talks I'd ever heard of. I know they said something like that. But that wasn't the thing. The thing that really stuck with me is they said that you could talk for like 60 minutes with no notes. I cannot wrap my head around how it would ever be possible for a person to do that. And so what was interesting for me about that is I haven't thought for a very long time about ever speaking with notes.
Yeah.
So when I gave my Harvard talk, a different context, yes, I had my notes and I had it was a speech basically. But every other time I just stand up and talk. Now I've done some prep and all of that. I'm getting in a very long, slow, boring way to the point. There's thousands of hours of preparation and practice till you just get to this level of mastery where you're doing something that you don't even realize is a particular skill. So talking without notes is not even something I would think or consider as a skill. It's as fundamental to me as breathing, but it's because of hours and hours of work. So everybody of our age has at least one or two things that you've done hundreds of hours of. And the challenge and question is can you turn that invisible work that you've done that you're not even conscious of, can you think about what is the visible outworking of that you could commercialize or that you could use to give back to your community? So that's the first aspect. At our age, we've got hours. Are you using the things that you're really good at? Can your invisible work be turned into something? And the second thing is if you are a young person, the only way you cheat is by practicing. Yeah. So you don't have to wait to be 50 to build up your hours. You just have to be deliberate. So when our little guy Tiger, when he was learning any new sport as a child, he was absolutely obsessive. So when it was tennis, when he was like 3 years old, he would just hit a ball against my parents' garage for literally hours at a time. 3 years old, over and over and over and over again. When he picked up football, hours and hours and hours. And those of you who have children or know children, if it's Lego, if it's a computer game, whatever it is, they will obsess until they get it. It's possible for us to do that in our 20s and in our late teens. What is the thing we want to get good at? Give it the hours so that you get to mastery really quickly. That's the invisible iceberg under the surface. It's time in and really smart practice as well. Not just hours of dumb practice, smart practice.
Yeah, and that's being aware of what you should be practicing on, like having a good base and technique. That's why if you are going to learn, and let's use the example of public speaking because that's, what we spend our time doing, is don't practice when you're live as far as, I'm going to try this and see if it works, and then it works or it doesn't. And then so you go, well, I'll try this and see if that works or it doesn't. Like pick a process that works, something that's proven, something that you've been taught, and then just do it over and over and over again, and you're more likely to fast track. In fact, sometimes if you ever see a presenter and you go, I wish I could do that, I challenge you to pull out a piece of paper while you're watching them, or, you've recorded them, and just write down everything that you think that they did really well. Like, what was the most amazing thing about what they did? And then look at that piece of paper, because that piece of paper will simply be a list of what you're great at already or what you completely suck at. Like, there'll be one of those two things, because you can't be aware of something you're not aware of, right?
Oh, tell me about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so you're either going to see greatness and you kind of go, oh, I see them using vocal contrast. I know what that is. I'm quite good at vocal contrast, so I write that down. Or you might go, oh man, Sasha doesn't even use notes. I could never do that. I can't use notes. So it's either things you are good at or things that you suck at.
Gotcha.
But there'll be certain things that you can't see, certain invisible things that are making the speaker compelling. And until you know what those invisible things are, it's really hard to get even better, because you'll just get better at the things you're good at or improve the things you suck at. But it could just be those invisible things that actually would take you to the next level. And if they just told you what they were and you were able to recognize them, practice them and embed them, that would be game changing.
And that's where training comes in, right? and understanding how you learn. So identifying what those things are and going, how am I going to access those skills? So I do exactly what you're talking about in terms of when I watch comedians, but it's even worse than that. I'm not going, what are they doing that makes that joke land? I'm just writing down the joke and going, I can use that. That's a joke that fits within my personality, or that fits with who I am. That's a joke that I can incorporate into my material. Thank you very much, YouTube. And again, that's an example of the preparation and invisible work.
Yeah.
So some people go, oh, she's so funny. No, she just spent last night having a look at YouTube to see what comedians are talking about at the moment that's topical and funny.
Yeah.
It's just like going to the library. It's just a library of a different resource.
And maybe if we go back to our iceberg analogy, like, you're floating along, you've got a whole lot of experience that's sitting underneath the surface, and we're just seeing the top 10%. But then there's also like the duck analogy. When a duck's swimming, it looks all calm on the top and the duck's just cruising around. It is just fucking chaos underneath the water, right? The legs are going like an egg beater, crazy. And some people just have the ability to project calm, and some people just have that ability to find a way to come across as confident, even though everything may be falling apart or they're furiously trying to put it together. And that's a skill set as well. But it's two different versions of exactly the same thing. Above the water is what you see, but below the water can be completely different. One of the learning experiences, or actually two of the learning experiences I had when I was building my business as a PT, was I failed 2 times before I was successful. So I started a personal training business, and I wanted to train people and get results and do everything that personal trainers do. And I love fitness and wanted to change people's lives. And all I did was basically spend all the money that Joe and I were saving to get married on this business of trying to get it up and running. I think I got a beautiful business card out of it. I put up some posters because that's all we really had. And I got a couple of clients, but nothing really worked. And then when I tried to do it a second time, I made the same mistake. So again, just bombed out and ended up just getting a normal job as a gym instructor. It wasn't until the 3rd time that I actually learnt from those painful experiences what I shouldn't do, what I should do, and then apply it properly. But nowadays, I could fast track that. I could find someone that's got a proven system and a proven process that works and just get good at it and just follow the template.
I love and hate this story so much because I love that you were giving it a go, and I just hate that your wedding money just, I mean, happy
it was
days,
still a happy
married. Go now.
Still a happy ending. Yeah.
But if you look back, were you ready to follow a system if someone had told you that? So it wasn't that you were like, I'm going to do it my way. Was it just that there was no one around to show you what the most important things were?
Great question. I think the first time I wasn't ready. I just thought I could do it. And the evidence was very much overwhelming that I couldn't do it. The second time, I think I was willing to learn, but there wasn't anything around at that stage. So by the time I was kind of in that, yes, I want to do it again momentum, I wanted to learn, but I couldn't find the resource anywhere. I couldn't find the person. And that's why I love learning now, because education is everywhere. And if you don't like the person that's showing you that example, well, just, jump on YouTube and find a different one, or do a course, or find a mentor, or whatever it is. So if I lost it all again and had to start again, to the point we had with coffee culture, the transition or the speed would be quicker, because I'm not building the plane as I'm flying it. However, if it was something new, I would be tapping into the knowledge that's out there and really making a difference.
Yeah, love that.
So the other thing we should talk about is maybe the fact that you're doing something now and it's just not working. So if it's not working, what could you adjust in order to get better? What's the invisible that you're not seeing? If you were made aware of it, start to make those adjustments and get it going.
Yeah, I love this idea that just because it's not working doesn't mean it's wrong or that it's a bad idea. It might just be the execution. And you as a PT is proof of that. So first 2 goes, you just weren't executing it correctly. The idea was solid. You had the natural talent, the natural ability, the charm, the charisma. All of that was still there. It just needed to be packaged and executed in a way that the market was ready for or that the market would respond to. So I think the risk that we have is that we put ourselves out there and we get immediate feedback and we go, oh, it didn't work, so therefore I'll pack up my toys and go home. Rather than saying, what are the invisible things that I'm missing? What am I not seeing? How do I execute? How do I get some feedback? How do I get some coaching? How can somebody tell me what is or isn't working? Am I trying to achieve too much? Is my product too broad? Am I not niche enough? Just asking a lot of really good questions to try and understand whether it's the idea that sucks or whether it's just that you're not executing it in a way that's hitting the mark.
And as Tony Robbins says, he gives this great example of like when you hit a golf ball, right? You hit the golf ball and it feels at the start like it's probably a reasonably good shot. But then as you watch the ball, it just drifts out to the left or drifts out to the right. And what felt like a swing that was completely in the right rhythm and at the right direction ends up with a completely wrong result. And it's really a result of just being a few millimeters off. That club face is just a few millimeters off that makes the end result worse. So the tighter you can get that initial strike, initial information, initial setup, whatever it is, the better the end result would be. And that's where someone like a coach or a coaching program will adjust those few millimeters. But if you are seeing your end results are off track, you may not be 100% off. You could just be a few millimeters off, identify what they are, find the invisible and change it.
One of the invisible things that I think all successful people, actually no, most successful people who are growing and evolving are doing, is they recognize the difference between how they practice and how they perform. And they try and close that gap. And that's one of the invisible pieces of work that really can set you apart. As you say, I practice. And then when it comes to do it in real life, something happens and I'm not as good as I was when I practice. And so they start to identify what are all of those things that need to be in play in order to perform when it counts, not just perform in practice. So a good example of this is around when you're studying for exams. So you do practice essays and practice questions, and then you go and do the exam and you get this disappointing result. And you go, well, how can that be? Because I was so good in practice. Yeah. And in practice, there was less stress, there was less pressure. You weren't able to replicate the performance conditions. And if you think about perhaps you're giving feedback to a colleague at work, or feedback to someone who reports to you, and on the way into work you kind of practice what you're going to say, and then when you get in there the conversation doesn't go as you've played it out in your head. And I think what the most successful people are able to do is to then reflect and say, what is different between when I'm practicing this and then when I'm getting there in real life, in the real situation? What's the difference? And how can you switch on your self-awareness to notice what's different about you? And often it will be because something external is changing the environment and you're having a stress response to it. So if in your head you're saying to your colleague, so I would really appreciate it if when you have a problem with me, you don't talk to Janet about it, you actually bring it directly to me. And so that's what you've practiced. But then when you get into the situation and you start to say that to the colleague, you actually find yourself saying, so it's just, I think you're really mean and I want you to stop. And it's because when the person's right in front of you, you've got a whole set of inputs that you're responding to. Yeah. So how can you prepare for that? How can you practice for that? And once you've had that situation, how you can learn to be better next time. Those are some of the kind of the invisible things that can take place after the fact and before the fact to help you get better in the situation. It's no point having a terrible interaction with a person and not learning from it.
Yeah. All right, so maybe as you're starting to think about prepping for things or starting new skill sets, or as you're even navigating your career and you see the success that's in front of you and the people that you are comparing yourself to or the skill set you are comparing yourself to, just step back and think, what is the invisible? What am I not seeing that has got this person to that point? And also just don't take for granted that people's success was given to them. They probably did the hours, they stayed up late, they sacrificed a lot of stuff to get to that point. So yeah, there's a lot of invisible going on and everybody's got their stories. So can we talk about Ted Lasso finishing? I haven't watched the end of it yet, so you can't tell me what happens, but how was the last episode without giving anything away?
It's been a big week for me because not only have I had COVID, which meant I can't go anywhere outside of my bedroom. Well, actually, I'm not even in my bedroom. I've been banished to the guest room, and occasionally one of the people I live with throws me an old bone. That's what I feed on. But not only that, there was the final of Succession on Sunday night, and that was possibly the best almost 90 minutes of television I have seen in a long time. Phenomenally good.
Wow.
Just so well written. I didn't know that it was written by Jesse Armstrong. I don't know how I missed that.
Who's Jesse Armstrong?
So Jesse Armstrong is British. And so his knowledge to have written such an incredible show that's set in the US, amazing. And Jesse Armstrong wrote one of my favourite shows of all time called Peep Show. And that stars David Mitchell and, Anyway, I've just recovered from Sunday night Succession, and then I got Wednesday night Ted Lasso. So it's like, wow, two of my favourite shows of all time ending in the same week. So I watched the final, and it was just the excuse I needed to bawl my eyes out. I just cried from beginning to end. It's cheesy and poignant and overwrought and wonderful, and you're in for such a treat.
Oh, that's good. I'm so looking forward to it, but I've got to make sure I just can watch that one in a way that celebrates the ending. I might have to have like a Ted Lasso party.
Yes. Do that.
Yeah.
Which character are you?
Oh, in Ted Lasso, I don't know. Jamie?
No, Jamie Tart do 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 do. Jamie Tart do 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 do. I think you're Ted, aren't you? Aren't you Ted? Aren't you? You are just that all-round good guy.
God. What, can I have the weirdness of Coach Beard, though? I'm not that weird. I'm not that weird. I'm pretty straight.
I want you to watch this last episode, and then you tell me if you still want to be Beard. And if you do, then I will buy you the appropriate clothing, and you can wear it on one of our shows.
All right.
And as soon as you watch the last episode, you'll know the piece of clothing I'm referring to.
Okay.